Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. Upstairs, I crept into Melissa's room. It was dark and quiet, with just a little night light illuminating her bed. I walked over and looked down at her sleeping. "Sorry, darling, did you miss me?" I said in a hushed voice. "I promise I won't do it often." I bent down and lightly kissed her forehead, adjusting the covers a bit as I did. "Sleep well," I whispered as I headed for the door. Back in my own room, I sat on the bed and reflected on the night. I had enjoyed myself and loved being out as Alex. Although my future with Pete was uncertain, I had learned two things tonight that stuck in my mind. 1. Amanda was jealous of me, and 2. I liked being in the company of men as Alex. I woke up in a foul mood the next morning. George's reaction when I had come home last night had soured my experience of my first night out as Alex. I rose and took a quick shower before drying my hair and dressing in a pair of black jeans and a lemon blouse. The blouse was short, tied across my midriff, and our exercise sessions had really been working. I now had a perfectly toned stomach. As I looked down, I made a mental note to maybe get my belly button pierced. A jewel would be nice, I thought. Shaking myself into reality, I recalled last night. George had suggested it might be time for me to go back home, so why was I thinking of increasing my femininity when I could be back in my family home soon? I put on some light makeup and left my room to collect Melissa. Picking her up, I teased her as she giggled and grabbed at my fingers while I walked downstairs with her. Depositing her in the high chair, I set about making us both breakfast. 10 minutes later, I was feeding Melissa while munching on a couple of slices of dry toast, washed down with some pineapple juice, when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Gradually, into view came Amanda. "Shit, that bitch stayed here last night," I muttered under my breath. "Morning, Alex," she said as she approached me. "Any coffee ready?" "No, I'm not really one for coffee in the morning, but the kettle's over there." I pointed toward the countertop as I spooned the last of Melissa's breakfast into her mouth, wiping her chin with a tissue before lifting the bowl from the table. I walked to the sink and dropped it in. "So how was your date with Pete last night?" she asked, waiting for the water to boil. Fine. We went to see the women's club and then had a couple of drinks." "Oh, I've heard that's quite good." "I'll need to get George to take me," she said as I sat back down at the table to finish my breakfast. "How was your meal?" I asked. "Oh, really nice. And we had a good time after as well, if you know what I mean." She spooned some coffee into a mug and poured in hot water, stirring it as she walked toward me and sat down opposite. We sat silently, her stirring her coffee, then taking a sip before stirring nervously again. "Alex, can I ask you something?" she said out of the blue. "Sure," I replied. "You don't like me, do you?" "Well, to the point, I thought." "Not really, but I don't know you that well," I answered. "No, you don't. And I suppose others have clouded your judgment," she said. "Others?" I asked. "Yeah, you're friendly with Debbie Carter, aren't you?" she said, eyeing me up. "Well, we've gone out together now and again, but Debbie's not really mentioned you," I lied as a frown began to appear on her face. I continued, "George is old enough to make up his own mind about who he dates. I know you're keen on George, but I'm not sure if you're right for Melissa." I blushed slightly as I spoke. "In what way?" she asked. "I don't know, I just don't see you as the motherly type," I replied. "Well, maybe I'm not, but that's George's choice, isn't it?" she said, a touch of anger in her voice. "Yeah, it is," I said as the phone rang. I got up and picked up the cordless phone, switching it to answer. "Oh, hi Debbie, I said, noticing a forced smile appear on Amanda's face as I walked by. Just a minute. I put my hand over the mouthpiece. Can you watch Melissa for a couple of minutes? She nodded, and I picked up my discarded cigarettes and lighter, walking outside. With the phone balanced between my shoulder and ear, I pulled a cigarette from the packet and lit it. Are you still there? I asked as I exhaled some smoke and walked across the porch. Of course I am. You think I'd have hung up without finding out about last night? So, what happened? I paused. Nothing really. We went to see a film, had a few drinks, and then came back home. There was silence. That's it, she asked. Well, what did you expect? Rampant sex? That was hardly likely. Though I did kiss him goodnight. There was a chuckle from the other side. George was smashed when I got back. In fact, the Wicked Witch of the West is still here, I said, glancing toward the window. He suggested that it might be time for me to go home. He was in a really bad mood when I got back. The ungrateful bastard, after all you've done for him. Debbie said. I know. I don't know what's going to happen now. We need to have a chat tonight. Look, I better go see what she's up to. I left Melissa with her. Okay, speak to you later, Debbie said. I hung up and dropped the cigarette, crushing it out as I walked back toward the house. I stepped back into the kitchen just in time to see Melissa make a bid for freedom. She had climbed out of her high chair and was balancing precariously on the table. I rushed across and grabbed her to safety. Where the hell is Amanda? I muttered to myself, noticing her coffee cup left discarded on the table. A noise on the stairs announced Amanda's arrival. Where the hell were you? Melissa nearly fell out of her chair. I shouted. Oh, sorry. My mobile went off, and I forgot I needed to see a case in half an hour, she said, grabbing her bag as she began to leave. She could have fallen and hit her head. I protested as she walked by. She didn't, though, did she? And anyway, you're the babysitter, not me, she retorted, reaching the door. Bitch, I said as the door closed behind her. Early that evening, George came home. I knew he would probably be going back out with Amanda, as he did most Saturdays, but I wanted to clear the air. As we sat eating, I picked my moment. George, about last night, I started. He stopped, putting down his fork. Yeah. Well, you seem to want me to leave, I said, looking across at him, trying to catch his eye. He kept his head down. Look, you took a real chance last night, Alex. One false move, and we were all stuffed. What would the village have thought? What would Pete have thought? And more importantly, what would Amanda have thought, he said, staring down at his half-eaten dinner. I know it was really silly, but it worked out okay, and it won't happen again, I reassured him. Pete understands and he's cool with it. I told him there's someone else at home, so he's fine. He won't be bothering me again. Look, I was a bit wound up last night and a bit drunk when you came back. I'm sorry for what I said. You've been great with Melissa, and I don't know if I would have coped without you. So let's just forget about last night and start again, he said. Okay, I replied, and we returned to our meal. Things pretty much got back to normal after our chat, and the next couple of weeks went fine. Debbie and I were back in our usual routine of morning fitness sessions, followed by afternoons out either shopping or taking Melissa somewhere. She was becoming more and more of a handful with her boundless energy. By evening, I was washed out most days, spending the night curled up on the sofa with the occasional glass of wine, watching TV with George. Our conversations returned to normal, and we had numerous chats at night, along with the usual, "How was your day?" that couples do. One Friday, as Debbie was getting ready to go home, she asked if I fancied a night out, just me and her at the local pub. I don't know. Look at the trouble my last night out caused. And anyway, George goes out with Amanda on the weekend, so who would look after Melissa? I replied. Gavin will. You can stay over. We can go out Sunday, take Melissa to an amusement park, and give George and Amanda some space to themselves, she suggested. Anyone would think you like her now, I teased. Don't push it. We both know she's trouble, but she's the one in possession of the ball, or balls, so to speak, she said with a wicked grin. I'm not sure. Let me think about it. I'll ask George tonight, I said. Okay, ring me and let me know. That night, after dinner, I waited for Melissa to settle down before tackling the issue of Debbie's request. George, I was talking on the phone with Debbie today, and she's been a bit bored recently. I paused. And? Well, she was asking if me and her could go out for the night, just me and her down the pub one night. I looked across for a reaction, there was none. I'm not sure. You know what happened last time Debbie encouraged you, and what about Melissa? He asked. Well, Debbie said Gavin would look after her. I could stay overnight and give you and Amanda a night to yourselves. The thought of that made me a bit angry, but at least if Melissa was with me, she would be okay. George sighed. Look, okay, but please don't get involved with Pete again if he's in the pub, and try to get Debbie to stop setting you up with any of the other locals as well. I whooped with joy. Thanks, I said as I lunged across and kissed George's forehead. I'll just phone Debbie and tell her. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.